Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I would talk a little bit about the top 10 things that I dislike about medical providers and medical staff. It is extremely hard being chronically ill and to have so many medical conditions going on, and these 10 things make the struggle even worse. So number one is when I have a scan done or x-rays done and they call me or tell me in person that everything's fine. It looks great. Everything's fine. And then I obtain the records and actually read them, and I find out, well, like in 2015, I found out, well, no one told me that I had a tumor on my adrenal gland. They failed to call and tell me about that. So, you know, I was told, oh, your scans are great, everything's fine, and everything was not fine. Some of the other things that I have found are like my spleen being enlarged. No one told me about that. My heart being enlarged. No one told me about that. And there have been other things as well. I'm trying to think. At first, when they found parotid tumors in my parotid glands, no one bothered to tell me about that. And many of these things are things that need to be followed up on or evaluated. So number two is when doctors or medical staff call me and tell me that my blood work is fine, everything's fine. And I've seen so many mistakes with that too. It's like they don't even read it, or they have people reading it who don't understand the lab values. For example, in 2015, well, actually before that, I had my iron levels checked and vitamin D levels checked, and my vitamin D level was like a 6, which is extremely low. And vitamin D impacts a lot of different things like diabetes, cancer, heart disease, all kinds of things. So like if they're going to bother to check these things, why not call up the patient and tell them that something's wrong? It's like they're just going through patients so fast or not reading the stuff. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but so my vitamin D was a 6. My iron was an 18 at one point, and it should be, I believe, 30 or higher. Maybe it's 60. But either way, it was low, and no one told me that I was anemic. I've had my immune system counts. Those have been off a bunch of times, and no one's bothered to tell me. My cortisol levels were extremely low, and no one bothered to tell me. So all those things are extremely frustrating, and it makes me feel like that they just don't, they don't care. It's like they don't care about their patients, and they're just blowing things off, and that part is extremely frustrating. So I'm going to take a break right here and just apologize for being breathy, like when I talk. Dysautonomia makes you, when your heart rate is really high, it makes your it makes it hard to breathe, like you're short of breath. So I apologize that as I talk I'm really breathy. But on to number 3. So before every medical appointment, well, number 3 is I dislike when medical providers don't bother to update in their system the patient's diagnoses and the patient's medication list. So whenever I see a provider, I have always provided them with a list of my diagnoses as well as a list of the medications that I'm on. And lo and behold, I'll get on like my chart or, you know, the provider's medical application, and they haven't updated the records. It's, you know, I want everyone that I go to, I want to be on the same page as to what's going on with my health. And so I had a provider today that I saw via telehealth, and they had 2 of my diagnoses on there, and they weren't even correct. So that's extremely frustrating. You know, if a patient is trying to make sure that every provider has the correct information, please update it. Can you do that? Can you please update it? Like, I've typed it out for you. I've like spoon fed it to you. Please, can you just update it? It's not that hard. So number 4. Okay, so when I go to a specialist, well, number 4 is that I dislike when specialists especially, when specialists don't consider my entire medical situation and medical history. So for example, when you go to, let's say, a cardiologist, when you go to a heart doctor, their entire focus is on your heart, and that's it. Like, they don't want to look outside at your other medical conditions and consider how those things may impact your heart. For example, I have Graves' disease, and Graves' disease makes you have tachycardia, a high heart rate. So when I go to the cardiologist, they're looking at, I have cardiomyopathy, so I have a weakened heart, and I have dysautonomia, which impacts the heart. It makes you have a fast heart rate. So when I go to the cardiologist, they're looking at the cardiomyopathy, they're looking at the dysautonomia, but they're not necessarily looking at the Graves' disease, which impacts the heart as well. So that's frustrating as well. It seems like specialists are really narrow-minded, and they don't look at the bigger picture. Okay guys, so number 5 is when medical providers try to push you into a life-changing medical decision like surgery. This is something that I'm facing right now. I do have Graves' disease, which is a thyroid disorder, and my medical providers are trying to push me into either doing surgery or doing radiation to basically kill my thyroid. And what they don't understand, or what they can't comprehend, is that I have at least 16 complicated medical problems already going on. My quality of life is not the greatest, and they want me to undergo surgery, which is a major surgery, and I'm not really feeling it. I'm not really feeling the radiation or the surgery. I have enough going on in my life, and I don't know. That's just the way that I feel about it at this present time. So that's number 5. Number 6 is when medical staff expects the patient to do the medical provider's job. For example, sometimes they'll want you to bring all your lab work, or they'll want you to bring a copy or a CD of your scans. And these are things that it is their job to request. My medical records should not be coming from me. You know, they can request them. It's extremely easy. We live in this digital world. Like, they can have the disc or whatever the very next day. So watch out for that. That's frustrating as well. Number 7 is when when doctors they refer you to each other. For example, if you go to the emergency room and your primary care doctor has sent you there, and then you're at the emergency room and you're getting ready to leave, and they refer you back to your primary care doctor. So number 9 is when medical providers can't admit that they're wrong, or they are extremely arrogant. And I have a ton of examples of this. One thing that I'm thinking of is last June I was hospitalized, and while I was hospitalized, the CEO of one of the hospital systems in my area was going around, and she was speaking to patients, asking what can we do better. And so I told her, when I am in the ER, and this has happened multiple times, that the ER staff does not clean my clave. They don't alcohol the clave. And that's a major infection risk. Like, I could get sepsis and die because they're I guess too lazy, or I don't know. Like, even on a regular IV line, you should absolutely clean the clave. I don't understand why they think that a central line is any different. Like, you should be more cautious with the central line. But anyway, her response to me was that, that I needed to advocate for myself. And the first thing I said was, I am advocating for myself by telling you about this problem. And the second thing I said is, what happens if I come to your ER and I'm unconscious? I can't advocate for myself. And the 10th and final thing that is frustrating, or that I dislike about medical providers, is that I have experienced that if you have certain types of insurance, they automatically assume that you don't have a high school diploma, and they assume that you're uneducated. I have been talked down to so many times by medical providers because they have seen my insurance. And I have a master's degree in education. I have doctorate work. I have not completed my doctorate, but I have done some of my doctorate work. So that's frustrating too. Like, don't label people by their insurance. Go in and have a conversation with them, and don't assume that they're not intelligent.